Hey guys, welcome to another Shut Up Already. I'm just waiting for my forge to heat up right now, so I thought this would be a good time to talk about this whole part of the knife making thing. So I'll start this off originally with just letting you know that my experience with actually forging steel is super limited and really amateur, so I'm really happy with where it's at so far. But just take that with a grain of salt. I don't have a ton of experience with it. So this is just going to be, I'll run you through my experience with, this sort of side of things. Originally I built a little charcoal forge out of a brake drum. I'll grab it for you here. Just looks like this. It's a brake drum with a tube in the bottom, and it happens to be a tube that has a stand built onto it. So it stands up on its own, and then you run a little bit of air in through the bottom there. I just use a hair dryer, and you just blow air into your little fire, and it makes it hot enough to heat up steel. So I just burnt charcoal in mine because I don't have a lot of coal around here. Charcoal is easy enough to go and buy. It's not the best way to do it, but it will work. You could even just use firewood. If you had a campfire and like a leaf blower or something, blow it into that campfire, it will get plenty hot. You'll just go through a lot of fuel. But if that's what you got, that's what you got. So we originally built that, my buddy and I, super quick and easy, and I ran that thing for like 3 years, just strictly for heat treating. I did mess around a little bit with like trying to forge out a couple of files or whatever I had, just kind of playing around, seeing what the fuss was about and stuff. And it was not good. That little tiny fire, even for just forging stuff, wasn't really enough, and it was a real hassle trying to get a consistent heat treat on a lot of knives, especially some of the longer ones. So after a while, I finally broke down and dropped in on my Mighty Knife Forge from Mighty Forge. He's off of Vancouver Island in Canada, in BC, and this thing is awesome. I'll give you a quick, sorry, shaky. I'll give you a quick look at this thing. It's got two doors, one on the front and one on the back, so they open up. It's got a nice big chamber. I'm not gonna quote specs on it because I don't really know, but they'll be all on his website. And it comes with a little bar to stick on the front to hold up long stock. It's got two burners and a push button ignition, which is sweet. And it comes with everything you need except for a propane tank. It's got the whole regulator, 10 foot of hose. It's got everything. And the thing, like, I could never go back to that little brake drum forge anymore. This thing is just so quick, so easy, so consistent. It's just built for what you need it to do. So, it's making heat treating a whole lot easier for sure, and more efficient, but it has also offered me the opportunity to play around with actually hammering out and forging knives. I've been really pretty lucky and fortunate that I've had a couple of things gifted to me. One was this anvil from my girlfriend's uncle. He just had it sitting in his shop forever, and I had to drive to Calgary from BC to get it, but we brought it home one time, and so that was really fortunate for me. If you don't have an anvil around, you can get a little piece of rail from a railway. That makes a great anvil. Lots of guys use that, or any chunk of steel. I did have this thing first. It's just a giant steel pawl from some giant machine, but it's a hard piece of metal, and it didn't work very well. It was always bouncing around and stuff, but it's a piece of metal, it'll work. Sometimes you can get like a pin, one of those big pins from an excavator that holds the bucket on. That'll work too, Whatever you can do, if you're on a no budget or whatever, just, scrounge stuff up. Same with steel, like get some rebar, get some whatever, and just practice hammering away. Also, I've gone to a bunch of yard sales and stuff, and around here out west in BC there was lots of blacksmithing going on back in the days of the gold rush and stuff, so I was able to come across a couple hammers, which has been awesome. These are just small cross peen, your typical blacksmith kind of hammer. If you can't do that, you can also just go to the store and get a cheap one, Shop Pro, This is a 3 pound. I actually use this a lot because I really like that 3 pound weight, and I don't have to worry about wrecking the face on it or whatever. Or, you know, just go and get like your standard giant mallet. It'll work, right? I've also got this beauty from Matt Cedar that I had him custom make for me with a straight peen and a dog head on it. This one's awesome. That was a bit of a gift to myself. So when you get into forging, just watch a ton of videos. There's so much content on YouTube. There's so many guys on Instagram. Lots of people love sharing what they know about this thing. And definitely just look around a lot and you'll see so much information on how to get started, some little projects to practice on, how to forge out a knife properly. There's a couple of different ways, but you know, just there's nothing can beat practice, and I'm learning that it is a long, mellow learning curve. Which is kind of cool, because at first you sort of pick up a couple things and so you see progress right away and you get pumped on that. You just want to get back out there and do more. But yeah, it's you got to be real patient and be even more accepting of your own failure for this, because you know, things go wrong real fast and all of a sudden, you know, your little project is scrapped. So kind of expect that, and yeah, just scrounge around for old files or rasps or anything like that you can practice on before you go spending money on steel. So one last thing I want to talk about in regards to forging knives, and this is kind of like this is a weird thing in the industry. The market, you guys, the customers, have deemed that a hand forged knife, it has more value, being it's worth more money to you because it's forged. It's not just cut out of steel and out of a flat piece of steel stock and made that way, which I fully understand and agree with. Blacksmithing is a whole extra skill and art to know to build a knife versus just cutting it out and making it by hand that way. So this kind of leads into a whole larger topic of what's handmade, what's not. You know, using a jig to grind your bevels versus doing it freehand, and it all comes down to what your customer deems as valuable, what they're willing to pay for. And a lot of people are willing to pay for a knife that looks exactly the same as a stock removal knife. And is it either knife better? No, they're both made the same way. Or they're both made different ways, but you end up at the same result. Just one happens to be heated up and hit with a hammer. So you have the same result, but if you are willing to pay, or your customer is willing to pay more to have that knife actually forged, and then they know that is how that knife has been created, then that's worth more to them. It's almost like a sentimental sort of thing, you know. It's got that extra value to it. Nothing wrong with that, as long as people are going to be honest with how it's made. So there's a little bit of stuff out there where you know, someone will cut out a knife stock removal style and then heat it up and just kind of tap along the flats above the bevel to make it look forged and sell it as a hand forged knife. That to me is bullshit. You can't get away with that. And as a customer, you got to look into how these people are building their knives. Look back in their photos and see if they've got pictures or videos of them actually forging out a knife or something like that, because if that's what you're paying for, make sure that's what you're getting. You know, and that runs across the whole gamut. You know, if someone says that they're grinding a bevel by hand and you put value on that, make sure that they're not just grinding it with a jig. You know, there's ways that you can you know, sort of test your product to make sure, or sort of test your maker, I guess, to find out if what you're getting is actually what you're getting. And if they come across a little bit, you know, a little cagey about it and they don't really want to talk about the process, red flags start going up. So it all depends on what you put value on as a customer. Make sure you're getting that in your product. That's all I want to talk about with that. People should be honest. A lot of people aren't. What are you going to do? That's what happens when you put money into stuff. But anyways, that's all I want to say about that aspect of it. And yeah, just, you know, if you want to get into forging, the easiest way is to build one of those little brake drum forges. Go get yourself some lump charcoal. Don't use the briquettes. Use the lump stuff. It comes in the same place at the department store or wherever you get your charcoal. Make yourself a nice little fire. Get yourself a chunk of steel and a cheap hammer and start whacking away at it. There isn't much else you need You know, wear some eye protection because hot steel flying around is going to catch you in the eyes. Don't wear any clothes you like. Gloves, I don't wear a glove on my hammer hand. I do wear a glove on my tong hand. That's another thing we can mention. Tongs, I got some cheap ones at a yard sale. Really lucky for that. But you can use, you know, guys will take a pair of pliers and weld some extensions on that, or just get a really long pair of, I don't have them in here anymore, a long pair of channel locks or something. You know, any way that you can hold onto that steel far enough away from the fire that you're not getting burnt. So, you know, just like everything else, get into it, try it out, have fun with it. It's really neat to be pounding out steel and changing the shape of steel and stuff like that. And do the research, read lots. There's message boards full of great information. Watch the videos. If nothing else, it'll just get you pumped to get out there and start hitting steel. Have fun with it. Thanks.